And when I work with some of the kids at the school, or even in school systems growing up, I always saw that I often compared myself with others to see how I was doing, whether it be in school or sports, always comparing myself to the other person, to peers my own age, to see if I was holding up to the standards. And oftentimes, I feel we do the same with our moral lives. We compare. How are we doing with the rest of the world around us? Maybe sometimes that's why we like to watch the news. Because oftentimes the news doesn't show the good things, but always the bad. In today's gospel is the famous story of Zacchaeus. Now, Zacchaeus was a tax collector. Not only that, he was the chief tax collector. The tax collectors of Christ's time were Jews who worked for the Romans. They would take the taxes for the Romans, but also they would take extra money for themselves. That's how they would make their living. Really, they made their living off of cheating others. So really, the tax collectors were despised by all the Jews. They all knew it. So here, Zacchaeus, not only a tax collector, but the chief tax collector, he wants to see Christ. And when Christ passed by, Christ tells him to come down, tells him to stay at his house. Now, what does this mean? When Christ comes into his house, it really shows that when Christ enters the life of anyone, even the biggest sinner that we might see, it transforms them. It truly transforms them. In the gospel, what does Zacchaeus do after seeing Christ? He changes his whole life. He says, if I have cheated anyone, I will repay them 4 times over and give his excess to the poor. His life changed. And that is great hope for us. That even someone, a sinner like Zacchaeus, if they just come to Christ and let them into their lives, what a big change that could be. But the people in the story didn't feel that same way, did they? They grumbled. They grumbled that here, a sinner, Christ is coming to a sinner. Sometimes we do that in our lives, don't we? Sometimes we do it without even thinking, comparing ourselves to others. We might even think it's a natural way that we live our lives with others. We can't help but to compare. But God's love is more than that. If we continue to compare ourselves with others, we'll never be happy. We'll truly never be happy. But I would say that if we were to really know the love and mercy of God, we would truly embrace what Christ has done there. But are we willing to look at our own sinfulness? Are we willing to let Christ transform our own hearts? Because it's until we do that, then we'll always compare ourselves with others. We'll always maybe be bitter when someone else does better than us. But have we truly felt the love and mercy of God in our own lives? I think that's what Christ is calling us to today. One, to look at the hope in Zacchaeus, to see that there is nothing too far away from the Lord that he cannot bring back? And two, are we willing to let our lives be transformed by God's love and mercy? Now, as you come before the Lord today, where Christ is truly present before you, let us continue to ask the Lord for the strength and the courage to open our house, open our hearts to the Lord like Zacchaeus did, to let him into our lives so he can transform it into the love of God. Amen.